Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to thank the organization of the event for all the support, and we would like to greet our colleagues for sharing this session with us. It is an honor to participate in this Congress with you. And finally, thank you everyone who have taken their time to watch us here today. Hopefully you are all safe in your way to get vaccinated. My name is Marina, and currently I'm a PhD candidate in political science at the University of Brasilia.
Hello, everyone. I reaffirm everything that Marina said. I hope that you are all healthy and if not vaccinated, on the verge of being vaccinated. I am Teresa Ruas. I am a doctoral candidate in sociology at the Universidade of Sergipe at Prism. Well, the work that we'll be presenting today is called Auxílio Emergencial in Brazil, Building Advocacy Coalitions for a Future Basic Income Policy. And the question that we tried to answer was, have new coalitions of actors emerged during the Auxílio Emergencial? Does any of them advocate implementing a basic income policy in Brazil? And with that purpose, we identified the advocacy coalitions involved in Auxílio Emergencial. We also described those coalitions' beliefs and goals and identified points of convergence and divergence among those coalitions. And here is important to emphasize that the phenomenon that we studied is still ongoing. So the data collection and analysis have not yet ended. But for today's presentation, we take as a basis a time lapse that starts in February of 2020 and extends until July of 2021. Our sources are public speeches in legislative houses, the Folha de São Paulo, which is one of the main newspapers with national circulation in Brazil, and parties and civil societies organizations documents. And we used NVivo 12 for content analysis.
Before we jump to our analysis, it's important to contextualize this moment in which Auxílio Emergencial took place in Brazil. Brazil is worldwide known for introducing in the last decade social policies to fight hunger, poverty, and inequality. However, in the last 5 years, we are immersed in a complex scenario. In politics, we face great instability with the rise of a far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, who is constantly testing our institutions and flirting with authoritarianism. It combines both neoliberal and conservative political platforms. Our economy has never fully recovered the 2014-15 crisis, and we are watching the rise of unemployment, food insecurity, and poverty along the years. And in this context of emergence of a far-right president openly against social policies and of intensification of fiscal adjustment measures, there was an ongoing debate about the future of social policies. We were in the process of dismantling of the social policies structure created in the last decades. In this moment, in this particular moment, the Auxílio Emergencial and the pandemic arrived.
The position of President Bolsonaro and his supporters, including the Minister of Health, who was in office longer during the pandemic, Eduardo Pazuello, was of extreme denial. Thus, measures to combat the pandemic were taken in a very decentralized manner, with a major role played by state and local governments. In this scenario, the Auxílio Emergencial was the main measure to deal with the effects of the pandemic. The auxílio emergencial is an income transfer policy aimed at informal workers, poor and extremely poor people, and reached more than 68 million beneficiaries during the pandemic.
Here we bring some general information about the Auxílio Emergencial, this cash transfer program. In the pandemic, there has been already 3 different versions of Auxílio Emergencial, and some of its versions, the eligibility criteria have changed, the rules have changed. I just want to highlight some points that as the time passed, the value of the benefit decreased. It went from 600 reais to 105 and an average of 250 reais. And the number of beneficiaries also decreased because of the constant measures the government has employed to focalize the policy. And there was no auxílio emergencial from in the months of January, February, and March 2021. Well, our proposal in this paper is to analyze and identify the advocacy coalitions acting in auxílio emergencial. The concept of advocacy coalition comes from the advocacy coalition framework, which is a policy process framework created and developed by Sabatier and Weibel and other partners. In this framework, coalitions are collective forms to influence policy. They act in a determined policy subsystem, so, such as environmental policy is a subsystem, and in our case, cash transfer programs to fight poverty is another subsystem. And they are composed by actors, policy actors, who share policy core beliefs and coordinate their political behaviors. Each coalition is empirically found, and they have a 3-part belief subsystem composed by deep core, policy core, and secondary beliefs. It's very important to pay attention to the policy core beliefs because they are the normative and empirical beliefs concerning the policy subsystem, and they are the glue that connect different actors from legislative, from civil society, and all sorts of actors. In the literature, Tomasini has already started the work to identify advocacy coalitions in cash transfer programs. And she has identified 3 coalitions, 3 different coalitions: pro-human capital, pro-food security, and pro-unconditional income. However, during the auxilio, and with our empirical material, we have confirmed the existence of those coalitions and found another one, a new coalition called pro-market coalition.
Well, here we are going to highlight some aspects that we found fundamental to our research. An essential element in the debate around the auxílio emergencial, which was decisive in the reorganization of the advocacy coalitions that are disputing its definition, was the issue of funding sources. The new pro-market coalition lobbied through all the pandemic for a restriction on the beneficiary base and the value of the auxílio emergencial. The members of this coalition raised the argument of austerity and the need for fiscal responsibility, placing greater emphasis on the economic crisis caused by the pandemic and subordinating the lives and health of people to the health of the economy. This coalition used the auxílio emergencial as a political bargaining chip to enact austerity policies that were part of Jair Bolsonaro's original government program and that were synthesized in the PEC Emergencial, which is a proposal to alter the constitution. The other 3 coalitions were against the PEC Emergencial and also the speech pulled by the pro-market coalition. but there were important divergences among the founding sources for the auxílio emergencial among those three coalitions. The pro-human capital defended monetarist measures, currency issuance, and state indebtedness as alternatives, while the pro-unconditional income advocacy coalition defended a tax reform, and the pro-food security didn't quite define one alternative.
In addition to what Teresa has just said, the pro-market coalition contrasts with the others also because they see inequality as something natural and then consider meritocracy to be fair. They focus on inclusion errors over exclusion errors. So during the auxilio, the eligibility was monthly reviewed. Finally, they argued that social policies should focus on producing exit doors and productive inclusion for the people who need the most. In spite of the challenges, both pro-food security and pro-unconditional income coalitions have seen in the pandemic context an opportunity to claim for a new, more inclusive social protection systems. Here we sum up some of the conclusions we have found in our paper. The first one is about these new actors who have never participated in the debate of social policy from the inside, and they now are relevant actors and they coordinated themselves and they have a proposal. We can discuss what kind of proposal is that, but they have one, the pro-market coalition. And the question that remains unsolved is that, are they going to persist as a coalition? Are they going to implement new social protections policies? We still don't know.
And in short, an important finding of our research was that during the pandemic crisis, the food security and basic income coalitions have approximated because they have shared important beliefs at this moment. Some of them are they both rejected austerity as a financing alternative. They both claimed for a stronger social protection system, and they both saw the auxílio emergencial as an opportunity to advocate for stronger social protection systems. And another important finding is that a new coalition has emerged, the pro-market coalition, and in short, austerity and social protection are entwined topics in Brazil, and this connection was fundamental for the emergence of a new coalition and for the rearrangement of the alliances and disputes that were previously placed at the country.
Sometimes we talk about basic income and we are always watching the national level, but basic income is back to the debate, and what is very interesting that is back to the debate at the local and regional level. So some future agenda is also look what kind of rearrangement has been made at supranational levels, because there was movement and there was some initiatives, very new initiatives in the state level and municipal level during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to visualize the next video, which is has been sent from Marina or Ozanira de Silva. Is that correct? Yes. And here we go. Sorry for the pronunciation. One second. Oh.
I am going to talk about transfer program in Latin America and the Caribbean, emphasize Brazil in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, debate and reality. My presentation is about some result of an investigation under development by research of Brazilian, Argentine, and Uruguayan universities in Latin America and in the Caribbean. The short-term objective of this program is to transfer money to family or person, and over the long term, it is to raise human capital. The income transfer program deals with a reality in which informal, precarious, unstable, low-paid work advanced with unemployment, inequalities, and poverty affect large number of the working class that did not have social protection. This is the juncture of consolidation of neoliberalism when the hegemony of financial capital that emphasize the minimum stage, stopping the process of universalization of social rights and adapting focalized actions on poverty and extreme poverty. Based on this reality, since 2020, the income transfer program suffered impacts on their dynamic and development because of the economic crisis and social situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. For illustrating empirically this reality, I present the income transfer program in Latin America, Caribbean, and in Brazil. Survey developed in Latin America and the Caribbean into 2020 on income transfer and universal basic income program shows the following quantitative finds. In the 21 countries of Latin America, it was identified 49 programs prior to the pandemic and 65 created to respond to social and economic situation resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Chile is the country that had the greatest number of income transfer programs with implementation before the COVID-19 with 10 programs. Costa Rica is the second country with 9 programs. Honduras, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela did not record any implementation of program in the same category. About income transfer program to mitigate economic and social impact as a result of the pandemic, Peru is the country that most creates those programs, 10 programs, followed by Argentina with 8 programs, and next comes Chile with 7 programs. Nicaragua and Puerto Rico did not record income transfer program to attenuate situation of socio-economic difficulties because of the pandemic, and Puerto Rico was the only country that did not record the program prior to or resulting from the pandemic in Latin America. In the 20 countries of Caribbean, where the survey was developed, it was identified just 5 programs prior to the pandemic. The programs created as a result of the pandemic were in a significantly great number, 19 programs, while 8 programs did not record the program prior to the pandemic, nor such a program created to respond to situation result from the COVID-19 pandemic. Besides the quantitative data, it is possible to raise some qualitative aspects that contribute to the understanding of the income transfer program in Latin America and Caribbean, such as the economic and social context of pandemic of the COVID-19 greatly broadens the limit and the negative effect of social protection system of countries because of the deepening neoliberalism that adopt a conservative focus, make the decline of the struggle for universalization of rights. Funds for social programs are being cut increasingly, and social rights are being dismantled when there is a growing number of workers requiring full social protection, and the historical level of the inequality and poverty are expanded in such a continent. In this context, the income transfer program are often created as a continuity or to expand income transfer program that have already been implemented. They are emergency program and limited temporarily, extremely focalized on a given target population, and their objective is to attenuate the loss of income of workers who are unemployed or who have no possibility of maintaining even the informal work that they use to perform. Those are programs direct at responding to immediate demands, but enable of solving problems of structural inequality and poverty. At the same time, they are functional to the economy, reducing the size of the economic crisis, and also serving the political legitimation of governments. About the emergency aid in Brazil, in the context of increased the debate about income transfer program, in 2020, it was created a parliamentary branch for basic income with 215 members of parliament from 23 political parties to advocate the implementation of basic income. Besides, several members of parliament have presented law bills to institute income transfer programs. The emergency aid is a new and the broadest initiative in the field of social protection in Brazil and in whole Latin America and Caribbean, created in April 2020 to mitigate the reality of expanding unemployment or precarized informal work and poverty aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the program could only be created due to strong pressure from several movements of civil society and by people affected by poverty and unemployment who live in one unstable situation. It offers a massive money transfer benefit without conditionality, but it is highly focalized toward individual micro-businesses, optional contributors to the general regime of social security, informal work, and beneficiaries of the Bolsa Família. The required criteria to access the benefits are to be over 18 years of age, family per capita income of health a minimum wage, or total money family income up to 3 minimum wage and not having any taxable income in 2018. It was transferred a monthly benefits about $115 paid from April to August for up to 2 persons in the same family. Families headed by women receive a monthly value of about $230, but from September to December 1920, the value of the benefits was reduced to half. In spite of several problems to access and to implement the benefits, it must be acknowledged that emergency aid presented contradiction and positive aspects. It was a massive provision of money transfer in the context of advance of poverty, reaching about 68 million people, not requiring conditionality, have created a favorable environment to enlarge the social protection. And contradictorily, it shows how large poverty is in Brazil, and also increase the debate on conditional income transfer, universal basic income. The emergency act, created in 2020, was interrupted during January, February, and March 2021, even with the so-called second wave of COVID-19, and with unemployment, poverty, and extreme poverty reached an unstable level. This reality motivates social pressure to reach the emergency aid, and the federal government had to institute provisional measures in March 18, 2021, which renewed the emergency aid to run from April to July and later extended to December. However, the new emergency aid is quantitatively very restrictive. From 28 million people take care in 2020, a target put now is of 40 million. The new eligibility criteria highlight conservative focalization that was already being adapted with a broad spectrum of criteria, focused not on inclusion, but on exclusion. The monthly value of the benefits was reduced to health, which is insufficient even to buy a basic food supply. About the conclusions, I would say that the situation in which the analysis and problematization income transfer program are presented is one of deepening neoliberalism and the return of conservatism. In response to the growing demands, income transfer programs are created to mitigate the situation of population groups that are unemployed, the subemployed, who live in poverty, extreme poverty, and increasing hunger. But also they relieve the economy that depends on consumers, and it is a source of legitimation of governments, but they do not revert inequality and eradicate poverty. A conservative project is found in this situation, marked by the opportunism that seeks popularity and political legitimation, seen in the poor, a broad segment of the population that can be manipulated, controlled, and submit to benefits that minimally ensures their survival. The objective is to dismantle the welfare state. Besides, you have a progressive content project, which focus on redistribution of social produced wealth to promote social justice in order to ensure civilizing living standards, to incentive freedom, to not submit to degrading work that is similar to slave labor. This is a project that articulates the money transfer to enlarge the social protection centered on the right to education, health, and employment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this video. And now I'm going to pass the microphone to the last speaker, Eduardo Suplicy. Are you there? We need you to unmute your...
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to thank you very much and compliment my friends Marina Lazarotto de Andrade, Maria Uzamira Silva, that for a long time have been contributing to the basic income proposal. Brazil is the first nation in the world whose National Congress, with the votes of all parties, first in the Senate in December 2002, second in the Chamber of Deputies November 2003, approved a law that was sanctioned by President Lula uh, that institutes a citizen's basic income, universal and unconditional, that will be instituted step by step with priority first to those most in need until one day it will benefit all residents of Brazil, including foreigners living in Brazil for 5 years or more. I would like to tell you that 17 years after the ceremony of sanction, unfortunately, in Brazil, we don't have yet the functioning of a universal basic income. But it was very important that uh, the Defensory Union, a Defensoria Pública do Rio Grande do Sul from Rio Grande do Sul has um, issued an injunction mandate in order, well, presented to the Supreme Court in order for the federal government by Jair Bolsonaro, president, to really regulate the citizens' basic income proposal. And they must do it according to the decision of the Supreme Court in April 26. They will have to do it from 2022 on, first paying a basic income to those who are in absolute poverty or extreme poverty. So this is a quite important decision. It is important to understand that this decision by the Supreme Court is quite important. As Maria Zanira has told us, there is a very positive news that in 2019, 217 federal deputies and senators of the 23 out of 24 political parties that have representatives in the National Congress decided to form a mixed parliamentary front in defense of the basic income. And the last June 18th, Tabata Amaral, a federal deputy, presented with 8 other federal representatives an information requirement to the Minister of the Economy and the Minister of Citizenship, asking them how the federal government is taking the necessary steps to regulate the implementation of the citizens' basic income, according to the law 10,835/2004. And the Minister of the Economy, Paulo Guedes, has already answered with respect to the measures from the side of receipts. He says that the 3 initiatives from the executive power, so as to create a social contribution over goods and service operations, they are in the direction to diminish the regressivity of the Brazilian fiscal system, and also proposing several elimination of fiscal incentives. On the other hand, the Minister of Citizenship has answered, emphasizing that the citizens' basic income will be instituted step by step under the executive criteria, taking into account first those most in need. So Last August 9, President Jair Bolsonaro presented to the National Congress a provisional measure that establishes the Brazilian Auxilium and the Feed Brazilian and distinguishes the Bolsa Família with 44 very complex articles. We must say that the provisional measure starts to be a law once published, and the National Congress will have 120 days to approve, modify, or reject this law. What does it say? That with the main objective of reducing extreme poverty and absolute poverty, this Brazilian Auxilium establishes in several income transfer programs. The first infant benefit to families with children between 0 to 36 months, family composition families, to families with pregnant women or people with 3 to 21 years of age, paid to these members, to overcome the extreme poverty situation benefit to be calculated and paid after consideration of the monthly family income. In addition, the Brazilian Auxilium program includes 6 types of income transfer: the School Sport Auxilium, Junior Scientific Initiation Scholarship, Citizens Child Auxilium, Rural Productive Inclusion Auxilium, Urban Productive Inclusion Auxilium, Transition Compensatory Benefit. And so it's the Articles 3 to 19 of this provisional measure define the rules that each family must pursue in order to have the right to receive the Brazil Auxilium. So instead of Jair Bolsonaro government, instead of taking rational steps to simplify the transition from the Bolsa Família program that have had very positive results, especially during Lula and Dilma Rousseff government, the income transfer system will become more and more complex to be understood and managed. So it is my belief that the present government could move to a greater simplification of all income transfer programs that exist in Brazil towards the way of implementing the citizens' basic income, universal and unconditional. Of course, to follow in that direction, we will need to take the necessary steps to promote a fiscal reform towards a more progressive system, as well as finding new ways to create a fund to finance the universal basic income. It is time for the Minister of the Economy and the citizenship and President Jair Bolsonaro to listen to the recommendations of the most distinguished Nobel Prize economists, leaders such as Pope Francisco, that we should institute a universal basic income. As so wisely Pope Francisco says in his latest book, Let Us Dream, where he says that the universal basic income could reshape relations in the labor market, guaranteeing people the dignity of refusing employment terms that trap them in poverty. It would give people the basic security they need, remove the stigma of welfareism, and make it easier to move between jobs as technology-driven labor patterns increasingly demand. Policies like the universal basic income can also help free people to combine earning wages and giving them to the community, giving time to the community. It is necessary that the Ministry of Economy learns about what is the citizens' basic income universal and unconditionally. Recently in the National Congress, when asked about the universal basic income, he said, Paulo Guedes said, we only don't like the universal concept. We prefer the citizens' basic income. That was the concept of Brazil income, because when you speak universal, you will also pay to those who are very rich. The federal debt is the senators. So many entrepreneurs, it is universal. We will all receive. We cannot do this. We need to focus exactly in the citizens' basic income. Well, I have already written to the minister. Yes, everybody will receive. Mario Zanira, we, and Marina Lazurato, everybody, and I will receive. But those of us who have more will contribute for us and everyone else to receive. Therefore, we will have the great advantage of being universally, especially from the point of view of freedom and dignity of each person. It's very important, therefore, that the Minister Paulo Guedes listen to all of you who are in this International Congress of Young, and listen to the lessons, for example, of Philippe Van Parijs in Basic Income, a radical proposal for a free society and a sane economy. We must understand clearly that the best advantage of the basic income is to increase the real dignity and real freedom of everyone, such as our very brilliant Nobel Prize economist Amartya Sen tell us. So it is my belief that the universal basic income has very big advantages with respect to all other income transfer programs, especially to provide real dignity and freedom to all, as Amartya Sen defines so well in development as freedom. Development, to be meaningful, must signify greater degree of freedom. So it is my purpose in my life. I just became 80 years old last June 2021, to see the application of the unconditional and universal citizens' basic income in Brazil. In the past year, since March 23 of 2020, I have made 652 live interviews with 20 of the Brazilian states and the federal district, to more than 116 municipalities. And there is a growing interest in all municipalities, mayors and city councilmen and women. They are all asking about how can we have, as soon as possible, the universal citizens' basic income. Fortunately, in Maricá, there is a very important initiative, and they are starting to pay already to 1/4 of the population of 165,000 people. 42,500 are receiving the basic income, and by 2024, according to the mayor there in Maricá, all inhabitants will be receiving the universal basic income as long as the people is living there for 3 years or more. So let us do all our efforts to introduce the citizens' basic income in Brazil and in all countries of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduardo Suplicy, for your speech. Thank you all of the speakers, actually. And we're now going to move to the Q&A session. And I'm wondering if any of you has questions that wants to ask any of the speakers, or just to them all. Anyone who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand, and I'll give you, I'll let you unmute your microphone to do so. And in the meantime, I will pose a question, if that's okay. So I can gather from your speeches that there's been an increase to some level of interest towards universal basic income. Well, what Senor Eduardo just said, that about the amount of interviews being asked to participate to, it says something about it. So I'm wondering if you believe that the pandemic has played a role in this, and if yes, to what extent you think that the disastrous, if I may, the poor managing of the healthcare emergency has influenced the universal basic income discourse. Any of the speakers, feel free to answer, to take this question.
If I may, yes, do you hear me? Okay, so what we have discussed, me and Teresa, my co-worker, my co-author who is watching here, is that the pandemic was a critical juncture, and we, of course, this is a supposition. We might see that in the future, what is the effect of the pandemic, because we can't say if it's a critical juncture now, but in the future. But it came in a moment where we were already discussing our social protection system. So we were already talking about the need to protect more and to broaden Bolsa Familia and other benefits coverage. So these kind of reflections were already in course. In every critical juncture, the results of it, I mean, the kind of decision political actors make, they are related to the balance of power. So what we have right now, it's not just what we have said about the coalitions and everything. What we want to show is that there are different proposals on what we want for the future. And those proposals in a critical juncture, they are in conflict. And the result of this kind of power distribution, because policy is not just a technical debate about design, policy design, it's a process of negotiation, mobilization. It involves beliefs, it involves resources and strategies. So we have a false dilemma posed here about economy in one hand and social policy on the other hand. And we have this austerity idea and practice that is always present in our debate. So now it's a very interesting moment because we, as the people who claim for basic income and more protection, we have reacted to these circumstances. We, as civil society, as political actors and academy, so we have reacted. So that's very important. And I believe that that can alter the balance of forces.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna pass the microphone to Leandro Ferreira, who raised his hands first. Hello.
Thank you, Mauricio. Thank you for the panelists. It's a real pleasure to be in a BN session dedicated to Brazil, and having people from elsewhere also, not only from Brazil, following this